Welcome to my channel Freedom, the Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. Chapter 4. Try Prayer Power. In a business office high above the city streets, two men were having a serious conversation. One, heavily troubled by a business and personal crisis, paced the floor restlessly, then sat dejectedly, head in hand, a picture of despair. He had come to the other for advice, since he was considered a man of great understanding. Together they had explored the problem from every angle, but seemingly without result, which only served to deepen the troubled man's discouragement. "I guess no power on earth can save me," he sighed. The other reflected for a moment, then spoke rather differently. "I wouldn't look at it that way. I believe you are wrong in saying there is no power that can save you. Personally, I have found that there is an answer to every problem. There is a power that can help you." Then slowly he asked, "Why not try prayer power?" Somewhat surprised, the discouraged man said, "Of course, I believe in prayer, but perhaps I do not know how to pray. You speak of it as something practical that fits a business problem. I never thought of it that way, but I am willing to try prayer if you will show me how." He did apply practical prayer techniques and in due course got his answers. Matter ultimately turned out satisfactorily. This is not to say he did not have difficulties. In fact, he had rather a hard time of it, but ultimately he worked out of his trouble. Now he believes in prayer power so enthusiastically that I recently heard him say, "Every problem can be solved and solved right if you pray." Experts in physical health and well-being often utilize prayer in their therapy. Disability, tension, and kinder troubles may result from a lack of inner harmony. It is remarkable how prayer restored the harmonious functioning of body and soul. A friend of mine, a physiotherapist, told a nervous man to whom he was giving a message, "God works through my fingers as I seek to relax my physical body, which is a temple of your soul, which I work on your outer being. I want you to pray for God's relaxation inwardly." It was a new idea to the patient, but he happened to be in a receptive mood, and he tried passing some pitch thoughts through his mind. He was amazed at the relaxing effect this had on him. Jack Smith, operator of a health club, which is patronized by many outstanding people, believes in the therapy of prayer and used it. He was at one time a prize fighter, then a truck driver, later a taxi driver, and finally opened his health club. He says that while he probes his patrons for physical flabbiness. He also proves that spiritual flabbiness because he declares you cannot get a man physically healthy until you get him spiritually healthy. One day, Walter Huston, the actor, say by Jack Smith's desk, he noted a big sign on the wall on which were penciled the following letter A P R P B W P R A A. In surprise, Huston asked, "Why do those letters mean?" Smith laughed and said, "They stand for affirmative prayers, release powers by which positive results are accomplished." Huston's jaw dropped at astonishment. "Well, I never expected to hear anything like that in a health club." "I used method like that," said Smith, "to make people curious so they will ask what those letters mean. That gives me an opportunity to tell them that I believe affirmative prayers always get results." Jack Smith, who helps men to keep physically fit, believes that prayer is as important, if not more important, than exercise, steam baths, and a rub down. It is a vital part of the power-releasing process. People are doing more praying today than formerly because they find that it adds to personal efficiency. Prayer helps them to tap forces and to utilize strength not otherwise available. A famous physician says prayer is the greatest power available to the individual in solving his personal problems. Its power astonishes me. Prayer power is a manifestation of energy. Just as there exist scientific techniques for the release of atomic energy, so are there scientific procedures for the release of spiritual energy through the mechanism of prayer. Exciting demonstrations of these energizing forces are evident. Prayer power seems able even to normalize the aging process, obviating or limiting infirmity and deterioration. You need not lose your basic energy or vital power or become weak and listless merely as a result of accumulating years. It is not necessary to allow your spirit to sag or grow stale or dull. Prayer can freshen you up every evening and send you out renewed each morning. You can receive guidance in problems if prayer is allowed to permeate your subconscious. The seat of the forces which determines whether you take right or wrong actions. Prayer has the power to keep your reactions correct and sound. Prayer driven deeply into your subconscious can remake you. It releases and keeps power flowing freely. If you have not experienced this power, perhaps you need to learn new techniques of prayer. It is well to study prayer from an efficiency point of view. Usually, The emphasis is entirely religious, though no cleavage exists between the two concepts. Scientific spiritual practice rules out a stereotyped process even as it does in general science. If you have been praying in a certain manner, even if it is brought you blessing, which is it doubtless has, perhaps you can pray even more profitably by varying the pattern and by experimenting with fresh prayer formulas. Get new insights, practice new skills to attain greatest result. It is important to realize that you are dealing with the most tremendous power in the world when you pray. You would not use an old-fashioned kerosene lamp for illumination. You want the most up-to-date lighting devices. New and fresh spiritual techniques are being constantly discovered by men and women of spiritual genius. It is advisable to experiment with prayer power according to such methods as prove sound and effective. If this sounds new and strangely scientific, bear in mind that the secret of prayer is to find the process that will most effectively open your mind humbly to God. Any method through which you can stimulate the power of God to flow into your mind is legitimate and usable. An illustration of a scientific use of prayer is the experience of two famous industrialists whose names will be known to many readers where I permitted to mention them, who had a conference about a business and technical matters. One might think that this man would approach such a problem on a purely technical basis, and they did that and more. They also prayed about it, but they did not get a successful result. Therefore, they called in a country preacher, an old friend of one of them, because as they explained, the Bible prayer formula is where two or three are gathered together in many name. There am I in the midst of them. They also pointed to a further formula, namely, if two of you shall again on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. Being schooled in scientific practice, they believe that in dealing with prayer as a phenomenon, they should scrupulously follow the formulas outlined in the Bible, which they described as the textbook of spiritual science. The proper method for employing a science is to use the accepted formulas outlined in the textbook of that science. They reasoned that if Bible proves that two or three should be gathered together, perhaps the reason they were not succeeding was that they needed a third party. Therefore, the three men prayed, and to guard against error in the process, they also brought to bear on the problem various other biblical techniques such as those suggested in the statements. According to your faith, be it unto it. What this soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and we shall have them. After several short-going series of prayer, the three men together affirmed that they had received the answer. The outcome was entirely satisfactory. Subsequent results indicated that divine guidance was actually obtained. These men are great enough scientists not to require precious explanations of the operation of these spiritual laws any more than in the case of naturalistic laws, by are content with the fact that the law does operate when proper techniques are employed. While you cannot explain it, they say, the fact remains that we are baffled by our problem, and we tried prayer according to the formulas in the New Testament. That method worked, and we got a beautiful result. They did add that it seems to them that faith and harmony are important factors in the prayer process. A man opened a small business in New York City a number of years ago. Her first establishment being, as he characterized it, a little hole in the wall. He had one employee. In a few years, they moved into a large room and then into extensive quarters. It became a very successful operation. This man's method of business, as he described it, was to fill the little hole in a wall with optimistic prayers and thoughts. He declared that hard work, positive thinking, fair dealing, right treatment of people, and proper kind of praying always get results. This man, who has created fair dealing, right treatment of people, and proper kind of praying always get results. The man who has a creative and unique mind worked out his own simple formula for solving his problems and overcoming his difficulties through prayer power. It is a curious formula, but I have practiced it and personally know that it works. I have suggested it to many people who also found real value in its use. It is recommended to you. The formula is clearize, picturize. Number 3, actualize. By clearize, my friend meant a daily system of creative prayer. When a problem arose, he talked it over with God very simply and directly in prayer. Moreover, he did not talk with God as to some vast and far-off shadowy being, but conceived of God as being with him in his office, in his home, on the street, in his automobile, always nearby as a partner, as a close associate. He took seriously the biblical injunction in to pray without ceasing. He interpreted it as meaning that he should go about every day discussing with God in a natural, normal manner. He questioned the questions that had to be decided and did with the presence come finally to dominate his conscious and ultimately his unconscious thinking. He prioritized his daily life. He prayed as he worked or drove his car or performed other everyday activity. He filled his daily life full of prayer. That is, he lived for prayer. He did not often kneel to offer his prayers, but would, for example, say to God as to a close associate, "What will I do about this, Lord?" Or give him a fresh insight on this, Lord. He prioritized his mind and so prioritized his activity. The second point is the formula of creative prayer is to picturize. The basic factor in physics is force. The basic factor in psychology is to realizable wish. The man who assumes success tends already to have success. People who assume failure tend to have failure. When either failure or success is picturized, it strongly tends to actualize in terms equivalent in the mental image pictured. To assume something worthwhile happening, first pray about it and test it according to God's will. Then print a picture of it on your mind as happening, holding the picture firmly in consciousness. Continue to surrender the picture to God's will, that is to say, put the matter in God's hand and follow God's guidance. Work hard and intelligently, thus doing your part to achieve success in the matter. Practice believing and continue to hold the picturization firmly in your thoughts. Do this and you will be astonished at the strange ways in which the picturization comes to pass. In this manner, the picture actualizes that which you have prayed and picturized actualize according to the pattern of your basic realizable wise when conditioned by invoking God's power upon it, and if moreover you give fully of yourself to its realization. I have personally practiced this three-point prayer method and find great power in it. It has been suggested to others who have likewise reported that it realized creative power into their experience. For example, a woman discovered that his husband was drifting from her. There has been a happy marriage, but the wife has become procured in social affairs and the husband has gotten busy in his work. Before they knew it, Rose old-time companionship was lost. One day she discovered his interest in another woman. He lost her head and became hysterical. He consulted his minister, who adroitly turned his conversation to herself. He admitted become a careless homemaker and that he had also become self-centered, sharp-tongued and nagging. She then confessed that he had never felt herself the equal of her husband. He had a profound sense of inferiority regarding him, feeling unable to maintain quality with him socially and intellectually. So he related into an antagonistic attitude that manifests itself in petulance and criticism. The minister saw that the woman had more talent, ability, and charm than he was relieving. He suggested that she create an image or picture of herself as capable and attractive. He whimsically told her that God runs a beauty parlor and that fake techniques could put beauty on the person's face and charm and case in her manner. He gave her instruction in how to pray and how he gave her instruction how to pray and how spiritually to picturize. He also advised her to hold a mental image of the restoration of the old-time companionship, to visualize the goodness in her husband and to picture a restored harmony between the two of them. He was to hold this picture with faith. In this manner, he prepared her for a most interesting personal victory. About this time, her husband informed her that he wanted a divorce. He had conquered herself to the content of being able to receive this request with calmness. She simply replied that she was willing if he wanted it, but suggested a deferral of the decision for 90 days on the ground that divorce is so final. If at the end of the 90 days you still feel that you want a divorce, I will cooperate with you. She said this calmly. He gave her a quizzical look, for he had accepted an outburst. Night after night he went out, and night after night she sat at home, but he pictured him as seated in his old chair. He was not in the chair, but he painted an image of him there comfortably reading as in the old days. He visualized him trotting around the house, painting and fixing them as he had formerly done. He even pictured him drying the dresses as he did when they were first married. He visualized the two of them playing golf together and talking hikes as they once did. He maintained the picture with steady faith, and one night there he actually sat on his old chair. He looked twice to be sure that it was the reality rather than the picturization. But perhaps a picturization is a reality, for at any rate the actual man was there. Occasionally he would be gone, but more and more nights he sat on the chair. Then he began to read to her as the old days. Then one sunny Saturday afternoon he asked, "What do you say to a game of golf?" The days went by pleasantly until he realized that the 19th day had arrived. So that evening he said quietly, "Bill, this is the 19th day." "What do you mean?" he asked, puzzled. "The 19th day? Why, don't you remember? We agreed to wait 90 days to settle that divorce matter, and this is the day." He looked at her for a moment, then, hidden behind his paper, turned a page, saying, "Don't be silly. I couldn't possibly get along without you. Where did you ever get the idea I was going to leave you?" The formula proved a powerful mechanism. He prioritized, he picturized, and the sought for result was actualized. Prayer power solved her problem and his as well. I have known many people who have successfully applied this technique not only to personal affairs but to business matters as well. When sincerely and intelligently brought into situations, the result have been so excellent that this must be regarded as an extraordinary efficient method of prayer. People who take this method seriously and actually use it get astonishing results. At an industrial convention banquet, I was seated at the speaker's table next to a man who thought a bit on the rough side, was very likable. He may have felt a bit charmed by his proximity to a preacher, which obviously wasn't his usual company. During the dinner, he used a number of technological words, but they were not put together in a technological manner. After each outburst, he apologized, but I advised him that I had heard all those words before. He told me he has been a church attendant as a boy, but had gotten away from it. He gave me that old story which I have heard all my life and which even now people will get off as something entirely new, which When I was a boy, my father made me go to Sunday school and church and chant religious down my throat. So when I got away from home, I couldn't take it anymore and have seldom been to church since. This man then observed that perhaps he should start going to church since he was getting old. I commented that he would be lucky to find a seat. This surprised him, for he did not think anyone went to church anymore. I told him that more people attend church each week than frequent any other institution in the country. This rather bowled him over. He was heard of a medium-sized business and he fell to telling me how much money he firm took in last year. I told him that something wonderful had happened to him. He said he had been very depressed, for things hadn't been going well with him. He decided to get away for a week or so, and on this vacation read one of my books in which practical faith techniques and outlined. He said He said this brought him the first satisfaction and which he had felt. It encouraged him as to his own positivities. He began to believe that the answer of his trouble was practical religion. So, he said, I began to practice the spiritual principles presented in your book. I began to believe and affirm that with God's help, the objectives I was endeavoring to accomplish could be achieved. A feeling came over me that everything was going to be alright, and from then on nothing could upset me. I absolutely knew it was going to be okay. So I began to sleep better and feel better. I felt as if I had taken a tonic. A new understanding and practice of spiritual techniques are the turning points. When he left us, my table companion, who had listened in on this ritual, said, I never heard anything like that before. That fellow talks about religious as happy and workable. It was never presented to me that way. He also gives the impression and religious is almost a science that you can use it to improve your health and do better in your job. I never thought of religious in that connection. Then he added, but do you know what struck me? It was the look on that guy's face. Now, the curious fact is that when my table companion made that statement, a semblance of the same look was on his own face. For the first time he was stating the idea that religious faith is not something previously stuffy, but it is a scientific procedure for successful living. He was observing at first hand the practical working of prayer power in personal experience. Personally, I believe that prayer is a sending out of vibrations from one person to another and to God. All of the universe is in vibration. There are vibrations in the molecules of the table. The air is filled with vibration. The reaction between human begins in also a vibration. When we spend out a prayer for another person, you employ the force inherent in a spiritual another person. You employ the force inherent in a spiritual universe. You transform from yourself to the other person a sense of love, helpfulness, support, a sympathetic, powerful understanding. And in this process, you awaken vibrations in the universe through which God brings to pass the good objectives. Prayer for experiment with this principle and you will know its amazing results. For example, I have a habit which I often use of praying for people as I pass them. I remember being on a train traveling through West Virginia when I had a curious thought. I saw a man standing on the station platform. Then the train moved on and he passed from sight. I occurred to me that I was seeing him for the first and last time. His life and mine touched lightly for just a fraction of an instant. He went his way and I went mine. I wondered how his life would turn out. And then I prayed for that man, sending out an affirmative prayer that his life would be filled with blessing. Then I began praying for other people I saw as the train passed. I prayed for a man plowing in the field and asked the Lord to help him and give him a good crop. I saw a mother hanging up clothes, and that line of freshly washed Germans told me she had Teller's family. A glimpse of her face and the way in which he handled the clothes of the children told me she was a happy woman. I prayed for her that she would have a happy life, that her husband always be true to her, and that he would be true to him. I prayed that they might be a religious family and that the children would grow up strong, honorable young people. In one station, I saw a man leaning half asleep against a wall and praying that he would wake up and get of relief and amount to something. Then we stopped at the station and there was a lovable little kid, one plant's leg longer than the other, shirt open at the neck, wearing a too big sweater, hair tousled, face dirty. He was sucking a lollipop and working hard on it. I prayed for him, and as the train started to move, he looked up at me and gave me the most wonderful smile. I knew my prayer had caught him, and I waved to him, and he waved back to me. I shall never see that boy again in all likelihood, but our lives touched. It had been a cloudy day up to that point, but suddenly the sun came out, and I think there was a light in the boy's heart, for it was relieved on his face. I know that my heart felt happy. I am sure it was because the power of God was moving in a circuit through me, to the boy and back to God, and we were all around the spell of prayer power. One of the important functions of prayer is as a stimulus to creative ideas. Within the mind are all of the resources needed for successful living. Ideas are present in consciousness which, when released and given scope together with proper implementation, can lead to the successful operation of any project or undertaking. When the New Testament says, "The kingdom of God is within you," it is informing us that God, our Creator, has laid up within our minds and personalities all the potential powers and ability we need for constructive living. It remains for us to lab and develop these powers. For example, a man of my acquaintance is connected with a business where he is the chief of 4 executives. At regular intervals, These men have what they call an idea session, the purpose of which is to tap all the creative ideas lurking in the mind of any of the four. For this reason, they use a room without telephones, buzzers, or other usual official requirements. The double window is fully installed so that street noise are for the most part eliminated. Before starting the session, the group spends 10 minutes in silent prayer and meditation. They conceive of God as creatively working in their mind, each of his own way silently prays, affirming that God is about to release from his mind the proper ideas needed in the business. Following the quiet period, all start talking out ideas that have come to their minds. Memos of the ideas are written upon cards and thrown in the table. No one is permitted to criticize any idea at this particular juncture, for argument might stop the flow of creative thought. The cards are gathered up and each one is evaluated at a later session. But this is the idea trap session, stimulated by prayer power. And this practice was granted a high percentage of the ideas suggested proved to be without particular value, but as the session continued, the percentage of good ideas increased. Now many of the best suggestions which have later demonstrated their practical value are involved in the idea session. As one of the executives explained, we have come up with insights that not only show on our balance sheet, but we have also gained a new feeling of confidence. Moreover, there is a deeper feeling of fellowship among the four of us, and this has spread to others in the organization. Here is the old-fashioned businessman who says that religion is theoretical and has no place in business. Today, any successful and competent businessman will employ the latest and best tested methods in production, distribution, and administration, and many are discovering that one of the greatest of all efficiency methods is prayer power. Alert people everywhere are finding that by trying prayer power, they feel better, work better, do better, sleep better, and better. My friend Grove Patterson, editor of the Toledo Blade, is a man of remarkable vigor. He says that his energy results in part at least from his methods of prayer. For example, he likes to fall asleep while praying, for he believes that his subconscious is most relaxed at that time. It is in the subconscious that our life is largely governed. If you drop a prayer into the subconscious at the moment of its greatest relaxation, the prayer has a powerful effect. Mr. Patterson clapped as he said, "Once it worried me because I would fall asleep while praying. Now I actually try to have it so." Many unique methods of prayer have come to my attention, but one of the most effective is that evocated by Frank Lubunch in his excellent book, Prayer, the Magnificent Power in the World. I regret this as one of the most practical books on prayer, for it outlines fresh prayer techniques that work. Dr. Lubunch believed that actual power is generated by prayer. One of his methods is to walk down the street and shoot prayers at people. He calls this type of praying flush prayers. He bombards passers-by with prayers, sending out thoughts of goodwill and love. He says that people passing him on the street as he shoots prayer at them often turn out and look at him and smile. They feel the emanation of the power like electrical energy. In a bus, he shoots prayer at his fellow passengers. Once he was sitting behind a man who seemed to be very gloomy. He had noticed when he entered the bus that the man had a scowl on his face. He began to send out toward his prayers of goodwill and faith, conceiving for these prayers as surrounding him and driving into his mind. Suddenly the man began to stroke the back of his head, and when he left the bus, the school was gone and a smile had replaced it. Dr. Lovett believes that he has often changed the entire atmosphere of a car or bus full of people by the process of swinging love and prayers all around the place. In a Pullman club car, a half-intoxicated man was quite bullish and rude, talking in an overbearing manner and generally making himself obnoxious. I felt that everyone in that car looked a dislike to him. Halfway down the car from him, I determined to try Frank Lobert's method, so I started to pray for him, meanwhile visualizing his better self and sending out thoughts of goodwill towards him. Presently, for no seemingly apart reason, the man turned in my direction, gave me a most disarming smile and raised his hand in the gesture of salute. His attitude changed and he became quiet. I have every reason to believe that the prayer thoughts effectively reached out toward him. It is my practice before making a speech to any audience to pray for the people present and to send out thoughts of love and goodwill toward them. Sometimes I select out of the audience one or two people who seem to be either depressed or even antagonistic and send my prayer thoughts and goodwill attitude especially towards them. Recently addressing a Chamber of Commerce annual dinner in a southwestern city, I noted a man in the audience who seemed to be scowling at me. It was altogether possible that his facial expression was not in any way related to me, but he seemed antagonistic. Before starting to speak, I prayed for him and shoot a series of prayer and got goodwill thoughts in his direction. As I spoke, I continued to do so. When the meeting was over, while shaking hands with those around me, suddenly my hand was caught in a tremendous clap, and I was looking into the face of the man. He was smiling broadly. Frankly, I did not like you when I came to this meeting, he said. I did not like preachers and saw no reason for having you, a minister, as a speaker at our Chamber of Commerce dinner. I was hoping that your speech would not be successful. However, as you spoke, something seemed to touch me. I feel like a new person. I had a strange sense of peace and dignity. I like you. It was not my each piece that had this effect. It was the emanation of prayer power. In our brains, we have about 2 billion little storage batteries. The human brain can expand of power by thoughts and prayers. The human body's magnetic power has actually been tested. We have thousands of little sanding stations, and when these are turned up by prayer, it is possible for a tremendous power to flow through a person and to pass between human beings. We can expand of power by prayer, which acts as both a sending and receiving station. There was a man, an alcoholic, with whom I had been working. He had been dry, as the Alcoholics Anonymous termed it, for about 6 months. He was on a business trip, and one Thursday afternoon about 4 o'clock, I had a strong impression that he was in trouble. This man dominated my thoughts. I felt something drawing me, so I dropped everything and started praying for him. I prayed for about a half hour, then the impression seemed to let up and I disconnected my prayers. A few days later, he telephoned me. I have been in Boston all week, he said, and I want you to know I am still dry, but early in the week I had a very hard time. Was it on Thursday at 4 o'clock? I asked, astonished. He replied, "Why, yes. How do you know? Who told you?" "Nobody told me," I replied. "That is, no human told me." I described my feeling concerning him on Thursday at 4 o'clock and told about praying for him for half an hour. He was astounded and explained I was at the hotel and stopped in front of the bar. I had a terrible struggle with myself. I thought of you, for I needed help badly right then, and I started to pray. Those prayers starting out from him reached me, and I began to pray for him. Both of us joining in prayer completed the service and reached God, and the man got his answer in the form of a strength to meet the crisis. And what did he do? He went to a drugstore, bought a box of candy and ate all of it without stopping. The pulse him, so he declared prayer and candy. A young married woman admitted he was filled with hate, also very apprehensive, always worrying about his children, whether they would be sick or get into an accident or fall in school. Her life was a pathetic mixture of dissatisfaction, fear, hate, and unhappiness. I asked her if you ever prayed. He said, "Only when I get so up against it and I am just desperate. But I must admit that prayer doesn't mean anything to me, so I don't pray very often." I suggested that the practice of real prayer could change her life and give her some instruction in sending out love thoughts instead of hate thoughts and confidence thoughts instead of fear thoughts. I suggested that every day at the time for the children to come home from school, she pray and make her prayers an affirmation of God's protection, goodness. Doubtful at first, he became one of the most enthusiastic advocates and practitioners of prayer I have ever known. I idly read books and pamphlets and practices every effective prayer power technique. This produced revamped his life in and illustrated by the following letter which he wrote me recently. "I feel that my husband and I have both made wonderful progress in the last few weeks. My greatest progress dates from the night you told me that every day is a good day if you pray. I began to put into practice the idea of affirming that this would be a good day the minute I woke up in the morning, and I can positively say that I have not had a bad or upsetting day since that day. The amazing thing is that my days actually haven't been any smoother or any more free from petty annoyances than they ever were, but they just don't seem to have the power to upset me anymore. Every night I begin my prayers by listening all the things for which I am grateful, little things that happened during the day which added to the happiness of my day. I knew that this habit has treated my mind to pick out the nice things and forget the unpleasant ones. The fact that for 6 weeks I have not had a single bad day and have refused to get downhearted with anyone is really marvelous to me. He discovered amazing power in trying prayer power. You can do the same. Following our 10 rules for getting effective results for prayer. Number 1. Set aside a few minutes every day. Do not say anything. Simply practice thinking about God. This will make your mind spiritually receptive. Number 2. Then pray orally using simple natural words. Tell God anything that that is in on your mind. Do not think you must use specially types prayers precious. Talk to God in your own language. He understands it. Number 3. Pray as you go about the business of the day on the subway or bus or at your desk. Utilize minute prayers by closing your eyes to shut up the world and concentrating briefly on God's presence. The more you do think every day, the nearer you will feel God's presence. Number 4. Do not always ask when you pray, but instead affirm that God's blessings are being given and spend most of your prayers giving thanks. Pray with the belief that Number 5. Pray with the belief that sincere prayers can reach out and surround your loved ones with God's love and protection. Number 6. Never use a negative thought in prayer. Only positive thoughts get results. Number 7. Always express willingness to accept God's will. Ask for what you want, but be willing to take what God gives you. It may be better than what you ask for. Number 8. Practice the attitude of putting everything in God's hand. Ask for the ability to do our best and to leave the result confidently to God. Pray for people you do not like or who have mistreated you. Resentment is blockage number 1 of the spiritual power. Number 10. Make a list of people or whom to pray. The more you pray for other people, especially those not connected with you, the more prayer results will come back to you. Chapter 5. How to create your own happiness. Who decided whether you shall be happy or unhappy? The answer, you do. A television celebrity had as a guest on his program an aged man, and he was a very rare old man indeed. His remarks were entirely unpremeditated and, of course, absolutely unhushed. They simply bubbled up out of the personality that was radiant and happy. And whatever he said anything, it was so naive, so apt, that the audience roared with laughter. They loved him. The celebrity was impressed and enjoyed it with the others. Finally, he asked the old man why he was so happy. You must have a wonderful secret of happiness, he suggested. No, replied the old man. I haven't any great secret. It's just as plain as the nose on your face. When I get up in the morning, he explained, I have two choices, either to be happy or to be unhappy. And what do you think I do? I just choose to be happy, and that is all there is to it. That may seem an oversimplification, and it is appeared that the old man was superficial, but I recall that Abraham Lincoln, whom nobody could accuse of being superficial. Lincoln, whom nobody could accuse of being superficial, said that people were just about as happy as they made up their minds to be. You can be unhappy if you want to. It is the easiest thing in the world to accomplish. Just choose unhappiness. Go around telling yourself that things aren't going well, that nothing is satisfactory, and you can be quite sure of being unhappy. But say to yourself, things are going nicely, life is good, I choose happiness, and you can be quite certain of having your choice. Children are more expert in happiness than adults. The adult who can carry the spirit of a child into middle and old age is a genius, for he will preserve the truly happy spirit with which God endowed the young. The subtlety of Jesus Christ is remarkable, for he tells us that the way to live in the world is to have the childlike heart and mind. In other words, never get old or dull or jaded in spirit. Don't become super sophisticated. My little daughter Elizabeth, aged 9, has the answer to happiness. One day I asked her, "Are you happy, honey?" "Sure I am," she replied. "Are you always happy?" I asked. "Sure," he answered. "I am always happy." "What makes you happy?" I asked him. Why? I don't know." He said, "I am just happy." "There must be something that makes you happy," I asked. "Well," she said, I will tell you what it is. My playmates, they makes me happy. I like them. My school makes me happy. I like to go to school. I don't say anything, but she never got that from me. I like my teacher, and I like to go to church. I like Sunday school and my Sunday school teacher. I love my sister Margaret and my brother John. I love my mother and father. They take care of me when I am sick, and they love me and are good to me. That is Elizabeth's formula for happiness, and it seems to me that it's all there. Her playmates, that's her associates, her school, the place where she works, the church and Sunday school where she worships, her sister, brother, mother, and father. That means the home circle where love is found. There you have happiness in a nutshell. And the happiest time of your life is in relation to those factors. A group of boys and girls were asked to list the things that made them happiest. Their answers were rather touching. Here is the boys' list: a shadow flying, looking into deep, clear water being caught at the blow of the boat, a fast train rushing, a builder's crane lifting something heavy, my dog's eyes. And here is what the girl said made them happy: street lights on the river, red roofs in the trees, smoke rising from a chimney, red velvet, the moon in the cloud. There is something in the beautiful essence of the universe that is expressed through only half articulated. By these things, to become a happy person, have a changeful eyes that see romance in the commonplace, in child's heart, and spiritual simplicity. Many of us manufacture our own unhappiness. Of course, not all unhappiness is self-created, for social conditions are reasonable for not a few of our woes. Yet it is a fact that to a large extent by our thoughts and attitude we distill out of the ingredients of life either happiness or unhappiness for ourselves. 4 people out of 5 are not so happy as they came here, as they can be, declares an eminent authority, and he adds, unhappiness is the most common state of mind. Whether human happiness streaks as low a level as this, I would hesitate to say, but I do find more people living unhappy lives than I would care to compute, since a fundamental desire of every human being is for that state of existence called happiness. Something should be done about it. Happiness is achievable, and the process of obtaining it is not completed yet. Anyone who desires it, who wills it, and who learns and applies the right formula may become a happy person. In a railroad dinner car, I sat across from a husband and wife. Strangers to me, the lady was expensively dressed as the first diamonds and costume which she wore indicated, but he was having a most unpleasant time with herself. Rather loudly she proclaimed that the car was dingy and drafty, the service abominable, and the food most unpalatable. She complained and fretted about everything. Her husband, on the contrary, was a genial, affable, easygoing man who, observing, had the capacity to take things as they came. I thought he seemed a bit embarrassed by his wife's critical attitude and somewhat disappointed too, as he was taking her on this trip of pleasure. To change the conversation, he asked what business I was in, and then said that he was a lawyer. Then he made a big mistake, for with a grin he added, my wife is in the manufacturing business. He was surprising, for she did not seem to be the industrial or expensive type, so I asked, what does she manufacture? Unhappiness, he replied. She manufactures his own unhappiness. Despite the icy coldness that settled upon the table following this ill-advised observation, I was grateful for his remark, for it describes exactly what so many people do. They manufacture their own unhappiness. It is a pity too, for there are so many problems created by life itself that dilute our happiness, that it is indeed most foolish to distill further unhappiness within your own mind. How foolish to manufacture personal unhappiness to add to all the other difficulties over which you have little or no control, rather than to emphasize the manner in which people manufacture their own unhappiness. Let us proceed to the formula for putting an end to this misery-producing process. Suffice it to say that we manufacture our unhappiness by thinking unhappy thoughts, by the attitudes which we habitually take, such as the negative feeling that everything is going to turn out badly, or that other people are getting what they do not deserve and we are falling to get what we do deserve. Our unhappiness is further distilled by curating the consciousness with feeling of resentment, ill will and hate. The unhappiness producing process always makes important us of the ingredients of fear and worry. Each of these matters is dealt with elsewhere in this book. We merely want to make the point at the present time and state it forcefully that a very large proportion of the unhappiness of the average individual is self-manufactured. How then may we process to produce not unhappiness but happiness? An incident from one of my railroad journey may suggest an answer. One morning, in an old-style Pullman car, approximately a half dozen of us were shaving in the men's lounge. As always, in such close and crowded counters after a night of the train, this group of strangers was not disposed to be gay. And there was little conversation, and that little was mostly mumbled. Then a man came in wearing on his face a bored smile. He greeted us all with a chilly good morning, but received rather unaesthetic guts in return. As he went about his shaving, was humming, probably quite unconsciously, a gay little tune. It got a bit on the nervous of the man. Finally one said rather scarcely, "You certainly seem to be happy this morning. Why all the cheer?" "Yes," the man answered, "as the matter of fact I am happy. I do feel cheerful." Then he added, "I make it a habit to be happy." That is all that we said, but I am sure that each man in that lodge left the train with those interesting words in mind. I make it a habit to be happy. The statement is really very profound, for our happiness or unhappiness depends to an important degree upon the habit of mind we cultivate. That collection of wise sayings, the books of Proverbs, tell us that he that is of a merry heart hath a continual feast. In other words, cultivate the merry heart, that is, develop the happiness habit, and life will become a continual feast, which is to say, you can enjoy life every day. Out of the happiness habit comes a happy life. And because we can cultivate a habit, we therefore have the power to create our own happiness. The happiness habit is developed by simply practicing happy thinking. Make a mental list of happy thoughts and pass them through your mind several times every day. If an unhappiness thought should enter your mind, immediately stop, consciously reject it, and substitute a happiness thought. Every morning before rising, lay relaxed in bed and deliberately drop happy thoughts into your conscious mind. Let a series of pictures pass across your mind of each happy experience you expect to have during the day. Savor their joy. Such thoughts will help cause events to turn out that way. Do not affirm that things will not go well that day by merely saying that you can actually help to make it so. You will draw to yourself every factor, large and small, that will contribute to unhappy condition. As a result, You will find yourself asking, why does everything go badly for me? What is the matter with everything? The reason can be directly traced to the manner in which you begin the day in your thoughts. Tomorrow, try this plan instead. When you arise, say out loud 3 times this one sentence. This is the day which the Lord hath me. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon.